Barstool boss and pizza rancor Dave Portnoy, I don't know, I'm out of my mind today, has blasted the race baiters who believe Caitlin Clark is only popular because she is white.
You will not believe the wild claims that ESPN's Monica McNutt just made about Caitlin Clark, and they're causing a complete firestorm in the basketball world. Welcome, everyone. Today we are going to dive deep into a huge controversy surrounding one of the biggest stars in women's basketball, Caitlin Clark. If you've been keeping up with sports news, you might have heard that Monica McNutt claimed Clark is only getting attention because she's a white girl from the Midwest. Yes, you read that right. But we're going to see why that statement is triggering fans, players, and analysts, including the well-known Barstool Sports founder, Dave Portnoy. By the end of this script, you'll know exactly why these comments are stirring such an uproar, and why so many people say they don't make any sense. Stick around, because we got plenty of stats, stories, and strong opinions that will show you the reality behind Caitlin Clark's massive popularity. We're also going to look at how Clark's talent might be changing women's basketball in ways we have never seen before. So get comfy and be ready to question everything you might have heard about this heated topic. From jaw-dropping three-pointers to record-breaking TV viewership, Caitlin Clark is doing things that no one else has done, and this script will leave you with a whole new perspective. Before we get into the details, let's talk about who Caitlin Clark is. If you've never heard of her, you're in for a treat. Caitlin Clark is a sensational basketball player who started making headlines during her college career at the University of Iowa. She became known for shooting three-pointers from practically half court, dishing out no-look passes, and racking up points like it was the easiest thing in the world. People started tuning in just to see her play. Sometimes, her games even drew bigger crowds than men's basketball games airing at the same time. That's huge, and it's one of the many reasons people say Clark isn't just another star. She might be the new face of women's basketball. But here's where the controversy starts. ESPN's Monica McNutt claimed that a big reason people are excited about Caitlin Clark is because she's a white girl from the Midwest. Essentially, McNutt implied that Clark's popularity might not have as much to do with her skill as it does with her background. This led to a firestorm on social media. Fans felt McNutt was downplaying all the hours Clark spent in the gym, polishing her skills until she became a record-breaking machine. Dave Portnoy, the outspoken founder of Barstool Sports, was one of the loudest voices arguing that McNutt's take was pure race baiting. Portnoy says the facts show Clark's popularity is driven by her spectacular game, not by the color of her skin. Let's go over the big moment that blew up the internet. Monica McNutt was interviewed by BBC special correspondent Caddy K, and McNutt said something along the lines of, "Caitlin was a white girl from the middle of America, so that's why a lot of people liked her." The exact quote ignited a debate because it suggested that Caitlin Clark's background was more important than her talent. Critics of McNutt argue that it's insulting to claim a player can become a national superstar just because of race, without recognizing what she does on the court. You don't need fancy analytics to see how Clark transforms games. She drains logo threes that would be tough for most NBA players. She makes passes that thread the needle through multiple defenders. She even breaks full court presses with ease. These are actual basketball skills, not random hype. Even kids look up to Clark because her style is so exciting. She plays with a flair that reminds some people of Stephen Curry or Pete Maravich. Children who see her, no matter their own race, often say they want to shoot from half court just like Caitlin. So is it fair to reduce that admiration to a matter of being a white girl from the Midwest? Many fans think that's a terrible oversimplification, and they say it ignores the reality of what is happening every time Clark steps onto the floor. So how does Dave Portnoy fit into this? Dave Portnoy, known for his bold statements and his ownership of Barstool Sports, jumped into the conversation by looking at actual viewing numbers for women's basketball games. If you recall, last year's NCAA Women's Championship featuring Caitlin Clark's Iowa Hawkeyes drew a record 18.9 million viewers. That's a massive audience and absolutely destroyed the previous records for women's basketball. Fast forward to this year's final, which featured Paige Buchers, also a white player from the Midwest, leading UConn. That championship game had about 8.5 million viewers, which is more than 10 million less than the Caitlin Clark game. Portnoy's question was simple. If Caitlyn is only popular because she's white and from the Midwest, then why weren't those same viewers just as eager to watch Paige Buchers, who has a similar demographic background? That's a pretty huge difference in the numbers, and it's hard to ignore. Portnoy's argument basically points out that race can be the main reason for the massive spike in viewership that Clark's games received. There has to be something else, and that something else is likely her electric style of play. She's known for making big shots in critical moments, and she's not afraid to trash talk. She brings in casual fans who would normally skip a women's basketball game because she's doing things we don't see many female players do. That's what Dave Portnoy and many fans are trying to emphasize. Now, let's talk a bit more about Monica McNutt's other statements. This wasn't the first time she seemed to downplay Clark's accomplishments. She once claimed Clark deserved only about 60% of the credit for the Indiana Fever making the WNBA playoffs, even though the team had missed the postseason 6 years straight before Clark arrived. Clark's arrival helped transform the franchise, boosting their record and making them a must-watch squad. Suddenly, their games are on national television 41 times out of 44 this season. That's unheard of for a rookie. So how could someone say she deserves only 60% of the credit for the team's achievements? Fans say that if Clark were any other highly hyped rookie, the same analysts might be praising her impact as the main reason for the team's resurgence. But with Clark, there always seems to be a reason to dial down the praise. First, it was that she's popular because she's white. Then it became, well, she's not the sole reason the Fever improved. Then, when it comes to Rookie of the Year debates, Monica McNutt pointed to other players like Angel Reese, claiming team success should matter more than stats. The inconsistency leaves many fans scratching their heads. They ask, why is it always something with Clark? Why can't analysts just admit she's a superstar who earned her fame on the court? Fans took to social media to voice their outrage over McNutt's comments. Some called for ESPN to fire her, accusing her of pushing a narrative that doesn't line up with the stats. Others felt it was unfair to reduce Clark's followers to a race-driven crowd, given how many young people of different backgrounds have adopted Clark as their hero. They love her swagger, they love her confidence, they love her game. To them, Clark represents hard work and skill, not an identity or a demographic. And with millions of fans tuning in, it's obvious she's connecting with all kinds of people. Let's also talk about what Clark did in her final year at Iowa. She managed to break viewership records 4 times within about a year's span. The 4 most watched games in women's college basketball all had Caitlyn Clark in them. That's not something you can explain with just race. People tuned in because there was an electricity surrounding her. She was hitting shots from places on the court where most players don't even think to shoot. She was dropping dimes to teammates in ways that left defenders spinning. Every time people saw a highlight, they wanted more. That's the power of talent. That's the power of someone who changes the game. Now that Clark is with the Indiana Fever, same story is repeating itself. The Fever have scheduled 41 nationally televised games out of 44. Other WNBA teams are moving their home games to bigger arenas just so they can sell more seats when Clark comes to town. That's not because of some random quirk. That's because they know if Caitlyn Clark is in the building, fans will flock to see her. She's doing for the WNBA what many stars have tried to do before but couldn't quite achieve. She's pulling in a wider audience. This is the kind of growth the league has wanted for a long time. And the stats keep showing that it's specifically Clark who is the crowd magnet. We even have Dave Portnoy referencing how when Clark was in college, her game sometimes outrated men's basketball games in similar time slots. That's huge. It means she's not just bringing in women's basketball fans. She's bringing in sports fans who might otherwise ignore the women's game. Meanwhile, Monica McNutt's narrative that is simply about Clark being a white girl seems weaker and weaker when you line up all these numbers. The logic just doesn't add up. What about Angel Reese? Some analysts, including McNutt, tried to make the argument that Reese should have been the Rookie of the Year over Clark because her team had more wins or certain team-based achievements. But many fans pointed out that it was contradictory for McNutt to say, on one hand, that Clark shouldn't get full credit for the Indiana Fever's success, but then on the other hand, reward other players for their team's success. It's a double standard that fans aren't liking. They're saying you can't have it both ways. Either you judge a player on stats and individual impact, or you judge them on team success. When it comes to Clark, McNutt seems to shift the criteria whenever it suits her. This has led some people to suspect that McNutt has a personal bias or an agenda to downplay Clark's accomplishments. While that might be an exaggeration, it's clear that a lot of fans feel something is off. They see a pattern of excuses, and they wonder why it's so hard for some analysts to just say, yes, Caitlin Clark is a once-in-a-generation player. If the league is breaking attendance and TV records, it's because of her playing style and her aura, not because of her complexion. Let's spend some time discussing Clark's playing style in more depth. If you're a 7th grader watching her for the first time, you might think you're seeing something magical. Clark can shoot from anywhere on the court. We're talking about shots so deep it's almost ridiculous. She doesn't just make these shots once a game either. She nails them regularly. Defenders have to step out way beyond the arc, which then gives her room to drive or pass. Her court vision is also off the charts. She spots openings that most players don't see until it's too late. And when she has the ball, you can't take your eyes off her for a second. She might thread a pass behind her back or whip a no-look, dime to a cutting teammate. Beyond that, she has a swagger that draws people in. She's not afraid to celebrate, talk trash, or show emotion. She loves the game, and it shows. That energy is contagious. When you're watching a Caitlin Clark game, you can sense the excitement in the crowd. It's not just about her being good, it's about her making basketball look like an art form. Some commentators say she's like Steph Curry in the WNBA. Others say she's the female Pete Maravich. These comparisons might sound exaggerated, but they show the level of admiration fans have for her skills. Let's talk about the record-breaking audience Caitlin Clark brought to the 2024 NCAA Women's Championship. Nearly 19 million people tuned in, a number that shocked even longtime women's basketball supporters. A year later, the final game, featuring Paige Bueckers and UConn, reached about 8.5 million viewers. Paige is also a talented white player from Minnesota, which is also in the Midwest. If race were the secret sauce, you'd think her championship game would draw a similar number, but it didn't. That suggests it's not just about being a white Midwestern star. Something else sets Clark apart, and that something else is her ability to wow the crowd. Whether it's draining a game-winning shot or piling on points in a spectacular fashion, Clark keeps you glued to the TV. She's also a lot of fun in press conferences, showing humility but also a bit of competitive fire. People have described her as a perfect blend of skill and entertainment. That's why she's must-watch TV. So looking at these facts, it becomes pretty tough to claim that her popularity is only about her race or where she grew up. Moving on, let's look at how the WNBA is changing because of Clark. The Indiana Fever, her new team, is basically shaping their entire offense around her unique talents. Coaches are designing plays that let her shoot from deep, run the pick and roll with Aaliyah Boston, and find open teammates like Kelsey Mitchell. Already other teams are scrambling to figure out how to guard her. They're coming up with special defenses meant to keep Clark from scoring 30 points every night. When opposing teams start tailoring their strategies around one rookie, you know that player is special. This effect goes beyond X's and O's. It's affecting the league financially. The Fever are projected to have some of the highest attendance in WNBA history, largely because people want to see Clark. Merchandise sales are going up too. It's not just Caitlin Clark jerseys flying off the shelves, it's everything associated with the team. Those extra resources can help the organization invest more in player development and better facilities, which benefits everyone on the roster. So, in a sense, Clark is not just a star player, she's a catalyst for an entire basketball movement. It's important to note that none of this means that race doesn't play a role in sports popularity at all. Sometimes certain backgrounds or stories can draw extra attention, but in this specific case, the stats are so overwhelming that it's hard to claim that's the main reason for Caitlin Clark's fame. She has consistently shown she can compete against top-tier opponents, score at will, and run an offense like a seasoned pro. Fans of all backgrounds cheer her on. They buy her jerseys, fill arenas, and share her highlight reels across social media. That's not something you can manufacture. In fact, you can argue that Clark's rise in popularity might help break down stereotypes about women's basketball. She's showing that women can pull off the same flashy moves that have traditionally been associated with men's basketball. Her no-look passes and half-court bombs prove that women can be just as entertaining. This might open the door for more fans to tune in and see what the league has to offer. That's something analysts should be celebrating, not dismissing. One of the coolest things about Clark is how she interacts with fans, especially kids. She signs autographs, takes pictures, and encourages young players to practice their long-range shots. She often speaks about how hard she works to perfect her craft. She wants people to know that it takes hours of practice every day to become this good. It's not something that just happens because you come from one place or another. That message resonates with people from coast to coast and beyond, showing them that if they work hard, they can also achieve great things. That's also why so many people found McNutt's statements so disheartening. It seemed to reduce all that effort to a simple matter of identity. Some folks felt it was unfair to Clark, but also unfair to the fans who admire her for her moves on the court. It's like telling those fans, you only like her because she fits a certain profile, which isn't true. People see the sweat, the grit, and the determination. They see a person who's basically living in the gym and rewriting the record books in real time. Let's shift back to Dave Portnoy and his direct criticism of McNutt. Portnoy isn't known for being subtle. He often uses social media to make bold statements. Here though, his main point was backed by plain facts. He simply asked how a game with one white Midwestern star, Caitlin Clark, could get 18.9 million viewers, while a final with another white Midwestern star, Paige Bueckers, got only 8.5 million. To Portnoy, this shows that you can't attribute Clark's huge following to the color of her skin. If race was the key factor, Bueckers should have drawn a similar crowd, but she didn't, and that's that. This doesn't mean Bueckers isn't a talented player. She absolutely is, but it shows that Clark offers something unique. Her game is explosive, dynamic, a must-see. This WNBA is banking on that, scheduling almost all the Indiana Fever's games for national TV. By comparison, other rookies haven't gotten such star treatment. The league sees the financial potential in Clark, and so far, it's paying off. Ticket sales are through the roof, and viewership for Fever games is up. None of this fits the idea that her popularity is an empty marketing push based on her background.